Hi, my name is Tucker Lentz, and this is my reflection over the persuasive speech in Module 5. The first question: did you practice enough? How comfortable and confident did you feel during the speech? Does it show in the speech? I actually practiced quite a bit, and I would say my speech aloud to myself, and I timed it numerous times. But the problem that I faced was the length of my speech, 8 minutes, and the full extent of it was difficult for me to memorize or speak extemporaneously, especially with a lot of quotes. Um, Even though that it seemed as though as I might have been reading from a script, but I probably could have recited 95% of my speech. I just had to look in that vicinity of my writings because it almost felt more comfortable to me. My confidence was very high, and I felt very confident because I knew my speech and my topic very well. Second question: what was your topic? Did your audience seem interested? How would you change the speech to make it more interesting? How will you change your audience analysis next time? My topic was the importance of capitalism. My audience seemed interested, especially with some older people there, but I wouldn't call my topic dull at all. But it's something that is there's a reason why people think history class is boring. It's because of it just seems like sometimes numbers, dates, and rambling. But I think it was kind of relativizing. I don't know, maybe a better word would be enlightening to people when they hear that there are people that they would know that question why America is an amazing nation. And my speech only delved into the reason why its economic system was amazing, even though we're not fully capitalistic. But it's just a reminder of why our nation and the framing in which our nation was taking place was such an amazement and a special occurrence than a lot of people believe, especially that kid in my class in the story that I recited or that I shared. I don't think I would change, except maybe give more stories that I did. I mean, I had people asking me questions. Who was that? I mean, because there was a student or a classmate that was there present in the speech. I mean, people were like, "Oh, what person was that?" And they were giving me guesses, and they were speaking to me about why America was important. Question 3: did you remember to incorporate all aspects of organization, thesis, and organizational pattern? Which of your main ideas seem to be best accepted by your audience? Why? Which main ideas seemed less accepted by your audience? Why do you think this was the case? Well, my thesis was this: we will look through the lens of insightful leaders and minds to uncover the impact capitalism has had on us and our society. And I guess my main claim was the sentence before, which is this economic framework, capitalism, is not just about markets and profits. It resembles innovation, individual freedom, and opportunity for everyone. So I believe I used that, and that sort of organization. Probably the biggest main idea was freedom. And I think it's because I was speaking about our nation, and it's definitely the largest descriptive term for our nation, because our nation is so free, and it's written in our founding that we've never changed our constitution. We've never had to change that, because the Civil War was fought because our Constitution wasn't being continued to the full extent, not because it was inherently detrimental to a certain group of people or diminishing. It's because it wasn't being extended. The people in control were not extending the Constitution to the full level that it should and is. So, yes, freedom, individual freedom is probably that, or individual freedom and choice is probably the biggest and accepted. Which idea maybe was less accepted? Maybe when I spoke lastly about synergy and maybe cooperation. I don't know. I only say that because in some people's minds it might be a little too complex to think about. I mean, when you think about, like I said, here, I meant to have a visual aid, but a pencil. This pencil, like I stated, the wood, the logger had to have a tool which had to have so many more parts, which came from so many more people, the oil, the fuel, the chain, the way in which, the plastic, and then we come, that's just the wood, and then we come to the metal piece and the rubber. There's so much that goes into a simple piece that is a pencil. But to some people, they might not be able to have that perception at the moment, or maybe at the time that I was giving that speech. Question 4. Did you use support material to back up your important ideas? Did you say them out loud so that they could help your credibility? Do you think you had enough sources? Did your citations sound smooth? Yes, I believe that I had plenty of quotes. I think I had, the last thing that I said was a quote. I believe I had 6, if I'm not, if I'm correct on that, between 5 and 7. For an 8-minute speech, I believe is plenty. And I even used a citation that was a disagreeing, as anyone could have told, because it was Karl Marx. So, yes, I said every name out loud, and I that's something that I really wanted to make sure that I read word for word on the papers, because I didn't want to misquote anyone, and I made sure to speak the name of who came up with that idea, or who wrote that idea. And yes, I think they sounded smooth. The only one that didn't sound smooth was the last one, and the only reason that is because there was a person in the audience that I used to talk about the author of that idea. I used to talk to them frequently about that person, and so when I said their name, it was kind of a funny or amusing experience. Did your gestures and body language complement your ideas? Was your voice expressive? Did you maintain good eye contact? Were your speed and volume appropriate? Were your notes unobtrusively used? So I believe I had good posture. I believe when I'm standing upright, kind of a taller guy, basketball player, but I believe that I looked like I had an agenda, and I resembled some sort of importance. I don't mean to bolster myself in any way, but I remember at one point when I spoke about money, I kind of emphasized that, and it was kind of a point that I wanted to drill home there. My voice, I think it's very expressive. Some people think I'm very blah, and don't show much emotion, but I think that I spoke. I have a very deep voice, and I think I spoke without ambiguity, maybe, and just I spoke with confidence. My eye contact and my notes were an issue, not to the point that I believed that it was distracting, but I truly wish that, I mean, in the heat of the moment, it seemed as though I was looking at the audience frequently and all the time. And then when I watched it, I was thinking almost the opposite. I was like, I know there were parts of my speech that I didn't even. I'm sorry, my allergies. There were parts of my speech that I didn't even write on paper, that I just came up with off the blue, and yet I was directly looking at my notes because for some odd reason I felt more comfortable doing that. My speed and volume, I'm from the country. I speak with a little bit of a twang and slow. Sometimes my dad says that he has to reach in and pull the words out of my mouth. So hopefully that my speed and I know that my volume was very well, because I usually speak, with a louder tone. But for some odd reason I kept getting thirsty. I don't know if it was from my nerves or something, and then I got hot and I had to take off my jacket. Hopefully those weren't distractions. Did you incorporate your visual aids PowerPoint smoothly? Did this work well? If you did not incorporate a visual aid PowerPoint presentation, how could a visual aid have enhanced your speech? Well, this was supposed to be incorporated into my speech, and I reached down to my pocket and I did not feel it, and it's because that I set it beside my computer, which wasn't a very good place, right? Not when I needed it. But so do I believe that could have enhanced it? I think the only way that it might have been enhanced is if my quotations were on a PowerPoint presentation, and like I switch the slide and it's blank, and then when I need a quote, I hit the slideshow and it comes to my next quote, because then it seems as though as they're more concrete and they can read it for themselves, and they know that the words are not the words of that person are not being made up. For one, that they're written down, that they're in stone, and that they can read them for themselves and interpret it any way that they please. Because sometimes the way that I mean, of course I would have reiterated them, but sometimes the way that people just only hear things is, they might perceive that in a different way than perhaps if they read it off of a screen. What one goal do you have for improving content in your next speech? Be very specific. It has to be my eye contact. When I did my speech over ties, I did extremely well, and I think that's because for some odd reason I just know a lot about ties, and I had so much more time when I did that speech too, because I remember I own a lawn care company, and it was in the summer, and I remember I would be reciting that the introduction, and how I would use my visual aid while I would be working, and I would listen to parts of it on my earbuds when I would mow, and I would say it when I was in the bathroom. Actually, the first time that we recorded this speech, I messed up, and we had to redo it. And I remember I wasn't embarrassed, but I was like, I should know this. I mean, I've done it so many times. But I don't mow now, and I feel as though that I'm I don't know, I'm just, what is one goal do you have for improving your delivery? Well, I guess I'll count that as the delivery in terms of the eye contact, and not reading as though as I'm from a manuscript. In terms of the content, I don't think that I think my content was very constructive and organized, and I really was true to what I was saying. What I mean by that is I didn't, sway away, didn't go off topic. I used a good story. I used, an example, used a lot of quotations. So I think the content of my speech was, of course it was not perfect, but I think it was to a great extent decent. And I think that's something that I have to continue, but especially on the delivery, just not making those notes unobtrusively used, as said in the questions before. I just can't do that. And again, like I said, it wasn't as though as I was reading from my notes in a lot of cases. In some cases I was, but in many of them, I was just looking in that vicinity for some reason. And this is something that I have to improve on, and it will really drive a deeper importance if I directly speak to my audience. So thank you very much, and this is my reflection.